Welcome and welcome back. Thank you for joining me for today's Rice Rewind. I am going to be continuing with my re-releases of my interviews with the late legendary John McAfee. And today I am re-releasing interview number 4. This interview actually took place on August the 9th, 2019. And this is the first interview that I did with him that I was not aware of his location. At this point, John was still on the run. He had went dark, he was off grid, and in this interview, he is actually in a Faraday cage.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Yourself?
I'm doing great, thank you.
All right, John, man, I appreciate you coming back on the Rice Crypto Show. How are you doing today, man?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on again. I always enjoy your program.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate that. And that last interview went over really good. And what I wanted to do with this one was to kind of play catch up. Because the last time I talked to you, you were in Cuba, and it seemed like all was going well. Can you elaborate on what happened in Cuba and why you ended up having to leave?
Yeah, absolutely. 3 days before we left, well, first of all, our taxi driver, cab driver, he worked for us full time when we were there. We virtually slept on the property. Everybody knows in Cuba that the taxi drivers are government agents. I knew this. A very, very nice guy. Over a month and a half, we got to know each other very well. So he divulged to me about 3 days before that the American government had approached Cuba about sending me back to America. The following day, Janice and I were riding bikes, came back and found 2 Army officers with a sheet of paper saying, "Be here at 3 o'clock today." It was an address. So we showed up. They were extremely polite. It was a reasonable facility with sofas and armchairs. They took me into a room. A general, an Army general came in, which is weird, with a translator. He spoke no English. The translator was fluent, and said, "Mr. McAfee, we know you're a friend of Cuba and that you love the Cuban people, but you must leave within 72 hours. That was it. And very nice. I'm so very sorry. Said, "I'm so very sorry." So I don't know whether the Cuban government said, "Get out," so that next time the Americans come, we can say, "You're not here," or what.
I would say they're probably looking out for you, though.
You'd say what, sir?
I think that they were looking out for you. I mean, you weren't causing any problems being in Cuba itself, but...
No, as a matter of fact, I was probably the best thing that happened to Cuba for that month, because I was running around taking photos and videos while the Wall Street Journal was saying everybody's starving and eating rats. There are no starving people in Cuba. We went all over that country.
Right.
If anything, they look overfed. So I think it was, because I was bringing the truth out, that they really saw I was trying to be helpful. In any case, we headed for the Dominican Republic.
Right.
When we came into dock, we were surrounded by soldiers with fully automatic weapons. Boarded the boat before we were even allowed to talk to customs or immigration. So we had not even officially entered the country. Our weapons were laid out on the table, as always. Whenever we go into a different country in the boat, lay the weapons out, unloaded. Customs comes on. They do one of 2 things. In the Bahamas, the Turks and Caicos, Jamaica, they write out a slip of paper telling you, do not take them off the boat, which we never did. Or, like Cuba, they say, well, we will take them until you leave, and which they did. They took them when we came in. They gave them back to us when we left.
Okay.
So the people boarding the boat said, "You've brought guns illegally into the Dominican Republic. You can't have guns here." And I kept saying, "We haven't even entered your country yet. I haven't talked to immigrations or customs." So it was clearly a setup. We were, detained in certainly not the best of circumstances. I can certainly tell you that, for 4 days. And then they said, you have to go back to America. Back to America? I didn't come from America. I came from Cuba. I haven't been to America in almost a year. I said, it doesn't matter. You have to go back to Cuba. But on the second day of our detention, I hired 2 lawyers. They were with me at the immigration when they were going to deport us to America. I had a British passport in my pocket. I pulled it out because I have dual citizenship.
Right.
Slapped it on the table and says, I'm British. I want to go home. And so that didn't even faze them. It says, no, I'm sorry. You have to go to America. All right. So I whispered to my lawyers. I said, file a brief with the courts to demand that the courts hear the case to say where I'm to go. Well, that was the last thing in the world the government wants, because the Dominican Republic does have a legitimate court system, a judicial system. Had it gone to the courts, it would have come out that they illegally boarded the boat before customs came, and this whole thing was a setup.
Right.
The lawyer said that's going to take a couple of hours. And I said, fine, I'll handle it. I then left the office, fell over on my face, and faked the stroke. Janice was with me. She thought it was, even though I'd whispered in there, says, "Don't worry, I'm just doing my thing here." Before I fell over in convulsions, and then pretended not to recognize anybody. They had no choice but to send me to the hospital. Right.
Right.
Took half an hour to get to the hospital. Another 10 minutes to be seen by a doctor. Anyway, I kept stalling and stalling. And 2 hours later, the lawyers came into the hospital and said, "It's done. Act well now." So they did tell me they'd never seen a client quite like me. So in any case, they deported Janice and I to England, to London. It was a weekend. Now, if the U.S. government is seriously after me to the extent that they will pressure a third world country to break their laws in order to send me to the States, then England, which is America's best friend, all they need is a slip of paper with a request, right?
Right.
But it was a week. Try to get paperwork through any government agency on a weekend. We arrived on a Saturday. We stayed 15 hours and left. And I cannot tell you where we are now.
No, I won't even ask. I just appreciate you kind of giving us like a little bit of a background of what exactly happened from Cuba to the point of where you're at now. And I completely respect the fact that at this point, based off of our wonderful United States government, that you cannot reveal where you're at. So I respect it, dude, completely. What happened is, like, who do you think narked on you by the Dominican Republic? Did you have an issue with somebody in Cuba? Or I heard something about the guy on your boat.
Listen, the U.S. has satellites, and the CIA probably has more than anybody. They can track a fly leaving one tree and entering another. I mean, I don't know exactly what it was, but if the CIA wants to know where I am, they can find me.
Right. I feel you. So, okay.
Except I think they'll have great difficulty now in my current circumstances. We have gone extreme dark in terms of electronic emissions. We're not using any telephones, haven't used a telephone for 2 weeks, not going to use the telephone for another year. We are in a Faraday cage. It's covered by the screen here, but we're, surrounded by metal foil, ceiling, walls, and floor. We have a signal jammer, an 8-channel signal jammer. The only thing that'll ever get out here is the hard line going to the internet. And we're using multiple private and public VPNs. So when it says I'm in Lithuania, sometimes it says I'm in Hong Kong, sometimes it'll say San Francisco. You cannot gauge anything from that. It's simply what we have to do now to avoid being found, because I see very clearly how intent the U.S. is on silencing me about cryptocurrency, corruption within the government, the overreaching of the Justice Department and the SEC.
which is why I wanted to bring you on again, to give you that platform, because you never know what's going to happen at any moment. So, and if you go on Twitter, you can see when you first got to your location, the rawness of where you're at before you started decorating. So, and speaking of your Twitter stuff, you've been tweeting out recently about a couple issues I wanted to bring up. One was censorship and privacy. I try to be a big advocate about trying to explain to people about shadow banning and censorship and what the media is doing to smaller content creators like myself, and in addition to, bigger content creators and bigger independent media people. So, do you want to kind of elaborate on what your feelings are and what you've been talking about?
Yeah, let's start with privacy, because that's basic to everything else. I believe that you can't have freedom without privacy. I think the Nazis proved that, in the early 40s. But people don't think what privacy really is. You and I and every human on this planet exercise a series of privacy parameters with every relationship that we have. It's just it's subconscious. For example, if you're at Walmart or some shopping center and you buy a pair of shoes, at the checkout clerk, you don't say, "Listen, I had my first illicit sex." No, you go, "Hey, the price of tomatoes went up," or "The weather is certainly hot today," and hello and goodbye, right? We consciously limit our disclosures to that relationship. To our boss, we may, limit it to only things that are related to work, or a small deception, like you call into work and you say, "I'm sick today," when really you're out playing golf. So we have those privacy parameters. To a casual acquaintance, you might divulge more. You might divulge, I worked at Xerox just when you did, and I live just down the street. To a close friend, you might divulge everything, or at least most things. "Oh my God, I had an affair. What am I going to do?" To your spouse, you may divulge everything or not. If you are having an affair and don't want her or him to know, then likely you will not divulge that. Every fucking relationship in every human's life exercises a subconscious set of privacy parameters. We could not exist as a society without this. Can you imagine what would happen if everyone knew everything about everybody else?
That would be
there
terrible.
Would be riots. It would be riots in the streets, and first and foremost, an entire rash of spousal shootings. Seriously. So we have to have privacy as human beings, because we are not perfect beings. Yeah, we love and we have grace, generosity, and compassion. We have lust and desire and fear, and a whole host of other things, jealousy. This is why privacy is absolutely necessary. So, and without privacy, how can you have freedom? You will be impaired at every step in your life by the government, the police, somebody. So that's privacy. What was the other one?
Censorship.
Yeah.
I know. I appreciate you taking the time too, with you feeling rough. I want to let everybody know that you're not feeling completely great. You're saying you're having some issues. So
it's okay.
But yeah,
it's okay. Censorship. Okay. Now, the fundamental basics of the United States Constitution, crafted by some of the brightest minds of all time. Benjamin Franklin, God knows what his IQ was, but great minds with great experience in government set forth principles which had to exist in order for a sane society to exist under a government. Among those were freedoms. Number one, freedom of speech, freedom of privacy. Freedom of speech is basic to a healthy human being. If you are clamped down on just because you express what you see in life, this is how I see it, people. Can I express that? Please God, I feel so alone if I cannot express myself. And I don't care what you're saying. I don't care if it's hate speech. I don't care whatever. you've got the right to say it. I've got the right to walk away or just not tune into 8chan. I mean, please God, people, we can't just selectively say this censorship is good, but that censorship is bad.
Right.
No, any censorship is bad. End of story.
No, I totally agree. I totally agree. And I think it's important to bring these issues up. And something else that you've been tweeting about in regards to the recent escalation of mass shootings that we've been having here in the United States, with the gun control issues, with the division that it's causing, and the tweets that you've been even mentioning about civil war and giving people prepare themselves for if that possibility was to come. You want to kind of elaborate a little bit more on that?
That tweet about civil war was all tongue in cheek.
Okay.
I was trying to show the ridiculousness of the entire problem. I mean, saying, listen, I started out by advising the liberals. Now, you guys have a serious problem. Number one, you're seriously outgunned. You need to buy as many guns as possible. To me, the irony of that seemed appropriate. Here's the issue. Gun owners are never going to give up their guns. And gun and non-gun advocates are not likely to give up their ideas. However, until the mass of America gun owners go out and start using guns, because believe me, if gun owners were a problem, you'd fucking know about it.
Right.
I'm sorry. So there has to be dialogue. There has to be. Not angry dialogue, you idiot. Stab him in the heart, which actually was yelled at the house of our leader of the Senate, for God's sake. That's not dialogue.
No.
That's an expression of rage. Well, let's stop expressing our fucking rage and start talking.
I agree. I mean, I think communication is key, and having that open dialogue where you're trying to be receptive and open-minded to the other person's point of views, whether you agree or not, you can
What
still
fucking compromises we can make it any.
Right. You're freezing up. Is your internet okay? I think we may have lost you. John?
We lost you.
Yeah, no, it's all good. It's all good. I kind of figured you would have some issues. We talked about going live. I talked about it with Janice, so it totally makes sense that we didn't. So, but yeah, so I appreciate you taking time to talk about that. I wanted to ask about your feelings on, just a quick question on your feelings on if you've even caught up with the Federal Reserve announcing that they're going to be doing this payment settlement solution called FedNow. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I'm sorry, you were breaking up. Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, no problem. I was curious about what your feelings were. I don't know if you're keeping up with what's going on, like the U.S. government completely, but the Federal Reserve just recently announced that they're going to be doing this payment settlement system called FedNow. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I don't know any details about it.
Okay.
I know no more than you. Headlines in the news, and then the garbage that's regurgitated by the press. I really can't comment on it at this point.
That's cool. No, I totally understand. Okay, and the last thing I wanted to talk about before we wrap things up, because I know your time is limited and you're not feeling great. Are there any updates on McAfee Magic, and or is there any announcements yet going on with the McAfee Exchange?
The McAfee Exchange we've abandoned. I'm just in our situation trying to build something of that nature just is not practical.
Makes sense.
The McAfee Magic. We're coming out next week with the shadow trading. That turned out to be more problematic, as most development issues are, than we anticipated. But the shadow trading is going to be a big thing, and everybody's demanding it. And it's a very unique way of implementing it, where you don't have to give somebody your money and then depend on them not to go bankrupt or disappear. The money stays in your own account.
Right.
So it's a very unique system. So that's coming out. Our credit card, the McAfee credit card, we have changed the concept now to, it's not changed it in a negative way, but I think greatly facilitating it. Instead of issuing our own card, which we did for quite a few cards, we are issuing a sticker, the code of your wallet. And it's not the wallet on your phone, it's the unique wallet that we give you. You paste it on the back of your credit card, okay? You put the credit card up against your smartphone, which has the wallet. You click and then say, I want to transfer a Bitcoin or a half a Bitcoin or $200 onto the card. That card, if it's a debit card and if it's either MasterCard or Visa, is now valid in any country in the world that accepts MasterCard or Visa. So it greatly expands our base. You don't have to get another credit card. The only thing you do have to give up, you have to give us your account and bank codes that we can deposit money into. Do you understand? Because that's your debit card account. So if you transfer $200, we deposit $200 in that account immediately from your Bitcoin.
I mean, that makes sense that you would have to have that information if you're wanting to have a deposit in your account if you're selling the Bitcoin for that purpose. So is there anything that you wanted to talk about before we wrap things up?
Yes, I just noticed for the first time that you have substantial ink on your arm. I have substantial ink. Yeah, very nice. Where did you get that done?
Well, I live here in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. There's a place called Tattoo Revival in downtown Winston-Salem. Really cool cat named John Slater. Yeah, I'm really proud because, I mean, I think the color work is really nice and really done very well. I mean,
It's beautiful.
Got more tattoos, but I like your tattoos as well. Yeah, I don't have a lot of to show off my ink.
Mine. I have to take my shirt off. I don't think it's appropriate, but I've got my entire back virtually is tattooed, and my shoulders and a couple on my chest. So
there's pictures all over the internet.
This is interesting. This says, "Don't fuck with my wife." That's intended for me. Okay. Every time I get up in the morning and look in the mirror, I remind myself, Jesus God, don't ever fuck with Janice again, because that's the scorpion right on top here.
Well, it makes sense.
So anyway.
And Janice, I'm sure can be vicious. She's a great woman, but I'm sure she can be vicious.
She is a great woman.
I would not hurt a fly.
Yeah, no. No, she kind of likes flies. That's why.
But she's with you.
All right. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
thank you very much.
I appreciate your time, John. Have a good one, brother.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Good morning. John McAfee here. Since I'm speaking to anarchists, I hope, I can speak freely. And what I want to speak about is government versus cryptocurrency. Now, what does that have to do with anarchy? It has everything to do with it. Cryptocurrency, for the first time since the electronic age, has given people, us, the individual, a powerful tool. What is that tool? It is the tool to unlock our cage from fiat currencies. Why would we want to do that? What is a fiat currency? It's a currency owned and controlled by some entity in some usually pyramidal structure. Without the US dollar or the euro or some other currency, we can't send our kids to school. We can't get medical care, can't get food, can't pay our rent, can't buy a car, can't do jack shit. Fiat currencies controlled by an entity means that we are controlled by that entity. They can increase the supply, devaluing what we have worked for, decrease the supply for whatever reasons. They can monitor our use. The banking system knows exactly what we have, where it goes, and when it goes, and sometimes why it goes or comes. We are at the mercy of the US dollar. but not really, because we have been given a tool which as yet we have not used properly. That tool is cryptocurrency. What do we do with it? We invest in it, buy Bitcoin thinking it's going to go up, and shed tears when it goes down, or we enjoy when it goes up and we get to sell at a huge profit. You've been given an automatic rifle, and you've been given invincibility, and you're using it like a toy. No, it's to be used. Why? The more it is used, the wider it spreads. The wider it spreads, the more things you can buy with it, the more things you can do with it. Now, the advent of privacy coins like Monero, like SafeX, like Apollo, that are absolutely private and secure, terrify governments. Why? They can't get into them. They can't see a single transaction, can't find an IP address, can't locate an individual, don't know what transactions are for. They are blind to that sub-economy that's growing within society. And if we understand this and use this and nurture this magic tool like we should, then this is the tool which frees us from the ultimate control of governments, which is financial control. Because if they can't control your finances, they can't control you. See this. Now, is this going to be an easy thing? Fuck no. I am proof positive. I'm in a tinfoil room in an undisclosed location because I tell the world what I'm telling you right now. Don't want to pay taxes? Use cryptocurrency and privacy coins and distributed exchanges, which cannot be shut down by government. See the beauty of this. Now, what are governments doing? Well, it depends. In India, they're making all cryptocurrency illegal. Well, good luck with that. I mean, you're going to have less luck than making marijuana illegal. I mean, 75 fucking years the U.S. has been crimping and making more extreme laws against it. It hasn't done jack shit. Because ultimately you cannot control what a person chooses to do with their own fucking body. You can't. Good luck with it. It's your body, not the government's. What you put into it, both ingest and into your mind, that's your fucking business. Not anybody else's. Nobody else's. So, by saying this, the governments are after me. Banks are after me. Everybody's after me. But I'm telling you the truth. This is what happens when you tell the truth. When the truth is unpleasant to powerful people. So, I know I'm rambling on. I do this. I'm an old man, and I have the right to ramble. This is the beauty of old age. But what I'm saying, what I have said, is the absolute truth, and you do know it. The question is, do you have the courage that the protesters in Hong Kong have? Because those motherfuckers, they're organized, they believe, and they're taking action. Do you have that in you? Because if you don't, I might as well be talking to the wind, which I don't enjoy. I mean, pissing in the wind is a no-no for everybody. We know that. So please, God, wake up and see what is in front of you now. And take this key, insert it into the lock of your cage. set yourself free. Is it going to be scary? Fuck yes. Dangerous? Life is dangerous. Fruitful, possibly? Yes. The magic key that we've all been waiting for. And it's here now, and pick the fucker up. Open your cage. Thank you very much.